Hello and welcome to Monday, June the 29th, almost the end of the month. I am Michael Bean and this is myfreeactingclasses.com. This is your free lesson for the day. Today, Mondays, typically talk about camera technique. Yeah, and I'm mixing it up because I've done this camera technique thing in a similar way a bunch of times. So I'm going to blitz through the very, very basics. And if you're like, oh man, he covered that so fast, I wish that I could learn more. Well, uh, if you go to confidenceoncamera.com, you will find a link to my YouTube channel where all of the past videos from these lessons are posted. And especially if you look at the Monday videos, the camera technique videos, you will find all of this spelled out in detail. You will also find the videos from several of the casting director guests that we've had there. So you can go and hear what they have to say about camera technique for yourselves. So to start with, just a super straightforward, what the camera sees is part of how you're telling the story. And it's just really important to remember. Now, something that I keep coming back to and back to, because we heard it from, I think we had 7 of the 9 film and TV casting directors in town visit us over the last 3 months. Yeah, and so what we heard repeatedly was that was that they're only going to watch the first 20 or 30 seconds. Yeah, I mean, I think Jackie Lind, who is either just like genuinely sort of more kind and supportive, or who at least was like, um, especially with like small people, said a minute and a half. But most everybody else we got an actual number from was like, yeah, we're going to watch 20 seconds, we're going to watch 30 seconds. And Tiffany Mack, especially in her video, said, if it doesn't grab me, if the acting doesn't grab me, if it doesn't grab me aesthetically, I'm just not going to watch the rest of it. And so I know it's like everybody's, everybody's doing acting is doing it because they love the acting part of things. Just having your setup is so important. And especially right now, if you want to be ahead of the curve, almost all auditions are going to be on tape. Or they're going to be by Zoom. I've heard some folks talking about Zoom auditions. I have a breakdown for a recent audition. Actually, maybe I'll do this first. Let me hook you with like why this is a good idea by showing you this breakdown. So this is from a casting director named Candice Elzinga, who we had come in recently. Maybe we want to watch. Maybe we want to look at this one instead. Yeah, okay. I think that's going to be easier. So Candice Elzinga, we had join us a month or two ago, a couple of months ago, I think. Let's take a look at this. Nope, that's not what I want to show you. There we go. So this is from Day of the Dead. It's casting right now. I probably shouldn't tell you anything about it because, it's casting right now and we don't want to break any rules or upset anybody. But all of this information is probably available on Creative BC, so I'm not giving away anything crazy. What I wanted to show you, and the reason I wanted to show you this is this note, which we've been talking about oh, this is a possibility. This is why it's a good idea to get good at self-tapes. Check this out. This is 19 recurring roles for a 10-episode series for the Sci-Fi Channel. Please suggest Vancouver local hires and BC taxpayers only. The current intent is to hire BC-based actors for all roles, capital letters, all roles. So this is something that we've talked about as a possibility, but this is the first time I've seen it just listed front and center on a breakdown. They're looking for all of the recurring roles for this TV show, and they're looking for them all in BC. That's very unusual. If this had come up last year, they would have cast at least some of those roles and possibly a bunch of those roles in Los Angeles because they would have wanted, a name or somebody who they can sell as like they're going to bring their own audience with them. Because of BC, our COVID numbers are really low. and the industry is starting to open up again. They are looking at hiring all Vancouver-based actors for this, or all BC-based actors, which is great news for you. But this is why being on top of your self-tape game really, really important right now. And so it's as simple as, do you have a non-distracting background? So as an example, Deborah has a non-distracting background. Ta-da! Ava, has somewhat of a non-distracting background, despite the fact it looks like she's hiding inside a sheet. Still, it's not that distracting. Joseph, here has a non-distracting background, right? There's just not a lot of stuff to look at besides him. So the whole point is, is the focus of your face. Now, if we look at the twins here, their background is so much more interesting than they are. Not because they are not interesting, but because look at all this cool stuff that's behind them. If they are using this kind of background for a self-tape, then they're going to lose us. We're not going to be watching their acting. We're going to be watching all the cool stuff in the background. So it doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to be not distracting. So it's not that difficult to find like a corner of, look what Ava's doing. Ava's just literally draped a sheet around herself. So like, talk about ingenuity, but it works. It's not distracting. Okay, it's a little bit distracting, but it's better than 1,000 stuffed animals. But I love it. It just proves that it doesn't have to be complicated. You know what I'm saying? It can be a bed sheet. It can be a plain wall. It can be, Reese here, same thing. Distracting background. Yeah, she'd probably want to take down the little clip lights if she was, taping something, because we want her eyes to be the shiniest thing. And that's the next thing is eye light, the light that's reflecting your eyes. So you see how when Reese looks up like this, you can see this light reflected in her eyes. Now, Reese, look down at the bottom of your screen. You see how the light goes out of her eyes? And so this is, I'm showing you two things. I'm showing you eye light, which is the light that's reflected in your eyes, super important for making you look alive, and also eye line, the line between your eyes and what you're looking at. Really important that your eye line be on level with your camera, because if it's not, likely you're gonna get that dead eyes effect. Right, so if we look at some of the other folks who generously, right, so Thomas, fantastic, or Joseph, sorry, here, fantastic eye light. Look at this eye light, right, poof, right? So his eyes are the shiniest thing. They're going to grab our attention. Deborah has almost no highlight. It's dark. We've got some, but if she was taping, she would want to rearrange things so that there was a nice clear light reflecting her eyes, and that can be by being across from a big window, that kind of thing. Right? If we look at Quinn's video, right? Really great highlight. So probably what he's got is a big window that is somewhere behind where the computer is. Is that accurate, Quinn? Yeah, natural light, you're gonna get the best fill, you're gonna get the best highlight. He would just need to rearrange where his computer is in his room so that he would have a non-distracting background. And probably he would do that if he was taping. So that's just the quick reminder of eye light, eye line. We've talked about frame last week, and so just make sure that we're nice and close to you. The further back we are, the less we're going to imagine that we can see how you feel, right? So if we go to Sarah and Amalia here, right, we can see how we can just barely see the top of Amalia's head, right? And so if she's up close, so she's filling the screen like I am, it'll just seem like she's feeling more. If she's way back there, which of course she has to be because she can sit next to her mom, but that's makes a good example for this, then it seems like we just can't see as much of what she's feeling. Right? It's important not to give us weird space above your head either. This is especially easy to do with an iPhone by accident. Also important if you're using a phone to do it this way and not this way. Right, so not up and down, but sideways, so that there's that extra space beside you and you can see your shoulders. Okay, so there we go. There's our horizontal, exactly. So there's our quick blitz over technique things. I thought it would start with a very short script. From a show called Once Upon a Time. We're not going to do the whole story breakdown with this, but on Mondays I like giving you examples of here's how you would tell this story on camera, and it's tricky. Now one of the things that I will often ask in class is when they are choosing a script for an audition, where does that script come from? And somebody want to like either throw that in the chat window, or just like wave a hand so I can unmute you so you can be like, oh, I know where that comes from. You're like, where do they get the audition script from? Yeah, okay. You're gonna have to unmute yourself, buddy.
I think I know a little bit of it.
Okay, it's a really simple answer. Where did they get the script from?
They get it from computers, laptops.
Okay. Yeah, technology, correct. Where did those pages that they use for the audition come from? And I know it's again, I'm not asking a rocket science question. Yeah, Ava.
Yeah, I think it's from the writer.
Right, from the script, from the actual shooting draft of the script. For the record, anytime anybody needs to unmute themselves, if you're on a computer, you can just press the space bar and it unmutes you long enough to ask your questions. Just makes your life easy. So the script comes from, that they use for the audition comes from the shooting draft of the script, which means it often includes notes. Oh, there's a great thing happening that I just want to point out with Candy's video. She's what's called backlit, which is why she looks totally film noir right now, because the light is mostly coming from behind her. So it's a great example of what you want to not do with your tapes. And of course, like she's just listening to the lesson from her car. So like rock on you. I'm not criticizing your car setup. I'm just using this as an example of like something visual that I wouldn't be able to show otherwise. So they pull those, they pull the pages from the shooting draft of the script, which means often it'll say things like, there'll be a little note that says off camera or off screen, or it will, like I'm about to show you, give you directions for physicality. They're very hard or impossible to do. And they're not trying to make your life difficult, but it's just important to remember they don't write scripts specifically for auditions. They just pull them from the shooting draft of the script, and that's what they're going to use to make the TV show or movie in the first place. And then they're saying to the actors, okay, yeah, this is where we're going to need you to help tell this story. And so that's what we're looking at. So a really simple thing that I think hasn't come up in these before. If you ever get the note off camera or like a voice off screen, and it's the character you're auditioning for, do not be off screen for it. That's like I'm doing a scene with Quinn, and like it's all about Quinn and he's doing a thing, and then it says off screen, what are you doing, Quinn? And then it pans over to me. And the reason that's in the shooting draft of the script is because the camera's on Quinn and everybody's got something to look at. But in the audition, if it's my audition, I don't want to start with this. Super boring. Especially if they're only going to watch the first 20 seconds. Like grab us right away with something about the character. I'm going to mute you because if you have a question, I need you to raise your hand or something. Please and thank you. So if it says off camera or off screen, then please don't do that. Now, I didn't mean to be rude there. I just forgot to mute everybody first. Somebody have a question that is like specific to this thing that they really want answered? Yeah, Kaden.
What if it doesn't say and then it randomly just goes off? Then you have to tape in again.
So what we're talking about is a script where one of your character's lines says off screen. Yeah, if the script says that. So I'm just going to keep going with the lesson, Ava. And remember, I'm always going to stick around for the last like 10, 15 minutes to answer questions. And if you have a question about this specific thing and you can type it into the chat window, that makes my life so much faster and easier. So this is from a show called Once Upon a Time. And it's for a young actor. This is the only time, as far as I know, this character appears. It's a single episode. Yeah, Once Upon a Time was like a big show for a while. Corinne Clark and Jennifer Page cast that one. Corinne was here just, I don't know, last month, I think, for one of these lessons. For those of you who caught it, oh my God, she was so great. I just keep trying to like lure her back for more because she was just so grounded and good. Once Upon a Time, Moraine. Okay, Once Upon a Time was so top secret at the time, that, and you can see this is 2011, so nobody's going to get me in trouble for showing this now. But they blacked out everything. So what we've got is two knights are pulling a stoic 14-year-old girl, Moraine, away from her parents. Her mother is screaming and pulling at the girl. Her father weeps. The villagers assemble, looking fretful. No, you can't take her. Moraine, it's all right, mother. So if you're auditioning for either the mother or Moraine, probably this is a flashback, right? Like we can't really tell, up here in the direction I see we can just barely see the ext, meaning exterior or outside, but we don't really know where they are. We don't really know what's going on. But let's say that this is a flashback and this is the only time this character appears. Because the actual audition sides for Moraine and only one page, which means probably this is the all that you see of Moraine, which means in my mind, and this is just guess, that's likely because Moraine is a character who's like either a recurring character or a much larger character they're seeing as an adult, and this is a flashback to like her as a young person, so you can see some aspect of her character. What we have in terms of that is stoic. And so if you didn't know what stoic meant, or even honestly, I do this all the time because I'm like, well, the writer clearly thinks this is really important. Let's just be double sure what it means. I don't know if you can see the definition here, but I look it up with my dictionary. It says a person who can endure pain or hardship without showing their feelings or complaining. And so if you weren't really clear about the definition of stoic, you would do this wrong. And you would be like, it's okay, mother, and you'd be like really upset as the girl. And whereas the whole point is that like if you're playing Moraine, is that the character is very stoic. However, if we go back and look at the script, and this is why I wanted to look at this on camera day, she's being pulled away, right? So you have two people, one holding each of your arms, and they're pulling you away from your mother. The mother is screaming and pulling at you. The father weeps. So what they've given you is a scene where three people are pulling on you, and the mother says, no, you can't take her. So let's look at what you would do if you're the mother, right? So it's no, you can't take her. That's the mother. And we're not going to do that whole story breakdown, but we can later. And then the daughter says, it's all right, mother. And so let's see. Deborah's really like the only one who's set up and standing to be the mom. And I know she likes demoing. So so Deborah, will you help me out? Okay, so let me talk you through this, and here's what I recommend if you are playing mom. Oh, right, I have to ask you to unmute. There we go. If you're meant to be pulling at another person, are you standing or sitting currently?
Me? I'm sitting. So you want me to stand?
Yeah, even if the angle is bad, it's probably better if you stand, and then just put the clipboard down and tip it up on you. Now, I'll show everybody else, but show you at the same time. If you are doing action, remember I keep going over this in camera class, and I think it's just useful to keep coming back to as a general rule. Do exactly what it says first, see if it looks weird on camera or not. Then keep it all below frame or outside of frame, see if it looks weird or not. Then and only then change it to be something that still tells the story, and then only if those three things completely do not work, cut it. But what most actors will do when they run into physical action, like pulling at their teenage daughter or being dragged off by knights, they'll just cut it. They'll be like, I don't know, I didn't know what to do, so I did nothing. Boring. That's the most boring choice you could make in terms of telling that story. So if you are, say, pulling at your daughter, and you want to actually resist something, so that you don't have to mime, what I want you to do is pull against your own hand, but put it down below the frame. So get closer to the frame and just lean in a little bit so you can get closer. Lean in, yeah, good. And then grab your own hand, like reach forward with one hand and pull, and pull hard against the hand. Just pull hard, and actually like really pull and push hard, because it's that resistance that will do the work for you. And then you don't have to do as much work with the line. So remember, the line is no, you can't take her. But instead, we don't want to catch you pushing for feeling or trying to feel. What we want is you just resisting, and if you resist hard enough, then that'll affect your voice in a way that you don't have to work at. So let's see that. So if this is an actual Zoom recording, and you're doing the Zoom audition, you would want to start that action when you hear stand by, because they'll say stand by, then they'll start recording, then they'll say action. And so if you don't start the action on standby, the very first thing the camera sees will be this. And then, right, so get into position. Get your hands out there, like really reach forward so I can see you grabbing the daughter. Remember, resist against your own hands, and stand by, pull.
No, you can't take her.
Cut. Does somebody else want to try it? What you'll see is that the more you physically resist, the more it affects the line. And the more interesting it is to watch. That it actually comes from the vigorous physicality. Okay, Caden, thank you for volunteering, but this is the mom role. And then if you are the daughter, Ava, so we'll get Ava to be the daughter who's being dragged off. Your line is, "It's all right, mother." So you're gonna have to unmute yourself.
There you go.
Okay, so again, first you would try to do it with exactly as written, and you do it on camera and be like, well, there's nobody dragging me, so that's weird. The next thing you would do is keep it out of frame. So see how your hands can't be seen right now? So just imagine that there's a guy on your left, right? So that way, who's got your hand. Yeah, but it doesn't have to be all the way sideways, right? He's because that just looks weird. So there, he's even a little closer to you, little closer to you, Ava, like closer to your body. Bring your hand down closer to your body, because we just don't want you to put you in any weird physical position, right? Remember, we want it to look good. We want you to look good acting. Yeah, exactly. And then tense that hand, right? So squeeze that hand so that instead of pretending somebody's holding you, you're giving yourself tension. Okay, and then what you could even do, is right, if you were closer, you could pull against that arm with the other hand. You could do that, some of that, and just make sure it stays down below frame, and just actually pull hard. So you're pulling and pushing against yourself. Good, and then take one little step over that direction, like they're dragging you over towards them, over towards where they're pulling, towards where they're pulling, Ava, towards them, and your mom's freaking out, and then you look at your mom beside the camera, and you say, "It's all right, mother." And you say it as calmly as possible.
It's all right, mother.
Great. So the guys who are pulling you are on that side. Your mother's on the opposite side of the camera. Because if you've got different eye lines, you want to place everybody you can as close to the camera as possible. Yeah, really nice, Ava. And so you can see when she's struggling, initially it made her laugh. This is totally normal when you start to do any kind of uncomfortable physical behavior, because it feels weird. There's nobody actually pulling her. And so what's happening is an utterly normal reaction, which is like, this is weird. And then you just have to remember that you're an actor. You're making yourself uncomfortable on purpose. And you don't want to laugh and smile that uncomfortable feeling away. You want to lean into it on purpose. You want to let it be uncomfortable. So if you make the faces, Ava, if you laugh and smile, if this is a game, right? If you're treating it like it's a game, then we'll see that you're not having something scary happening to you, right? So you have to relax into the discomfort and just let it be uncomfortable. You don't have to try and show me how scary it is. You just have to let it be the actual uncomfortable feeling that it is. Exactly. And then remember, your mom's on the other side of the camera. So I'm pulling you off, stand by, and pull, and they take a step towards them. And your mom's freaking out, and you look at her and you say,
"It's okay, mother."
But she's close to the camera. Yeah, there you go. Good. Yeah, and the only thing we would do, and it's so great. Thank you for helping me out and like letting it be an example, even though it's not perfect. Because there's vulnerability in that. The only thing you would want to do is put your eye line, the line between your eyes and what you're looking at, very, very close to one side of the camera or just very close to the other. So you had an eye line over here, which means we saw a lot of ear when you were talking to your mom, and we would need your mom to be out here near the camera. And I know that for you, you're probably looking at a bunch of stuff, but we don't know that when we're watching the tape. Does that make sense, Ava? Yeah, so right beside your camera. So basically one corner of your screen or the other corner of your screen, is where you want the people you're looking at. And if there's 7 people in the audition, you put 6 of them in that one corner where you're looking the most, and the one person who you have to look at periodically over here on the other side. Yeah, and you're going to have to rehearse that if you want to look good, even if you're doing the tape at home. Okay, we just got a couple of minutes, but I want to preface the thing that I'm going to be talking about in tomorrow's lesson, which is our story lesson. Tomorrow I'm going to be talking about actors empathizing with the feeling, and sort of this thing about personalization or sort of making it real to yourself by empathizing with the feeling behind the experience. So let me pull up, here we go. So I wanted to show you a little clip, just a minute of an RSA animate short. This is a woman named Brene Brown, who is, she's a teacher and a researcher and a speaker and a writer, and she talks about vulnerability. And what she says about vulnerability and empathy is some of the clearest stuff about vulnerability and empathy that exists out there. And this is really relevant for actors, but I'll show it to you first.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling.
Good, and so this is the spot that is the most relevant for actors. In order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that is connected to that feeling. Yeah, and so I get actors, talk a lot about characters that are really different than themselves. Now, and whether that's because they're in a Hallmark movie, or whether they're like in a science fiction movie, or whether something horrible is happening to them, and saying, but I don't have that experience. How can I play that character? And so the lesson is that, and here's the link to that RSA short if you want to watch the whole thing, and Brene Brown's name if you want to look her up. Because she's not an actor, she has her thinking about and her vulnerability and empathy super crystal clear. She's a professor of social work, I think, at the University of Houston, and she's become kind of a big deal in the last couple of years. But in order to empathize with your character's experience, you just need to empathize with the feelings behind it. You do not need to empathize with the actual experience. You don't need to go, oh, I know what that experience is. You just need to know, oh, okay, I understand what those feelings behind it are like, and I'm willing to go there. And then you can do that work. Okay, that was half an hour and 1.5 minutes. Let me give you all the power to unmute yourselves so that anybody who needs to go can go. And then we will finally take Caden's question if he's still around. There we go. So you can unmute yourselves.
Thank you.
Bye, people. Please. I'm not leaving. I'm still staying here. I'll still be around.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Caden, thank you so much for waiting. I know you really wanted to ask your question before. What was the question that you wanted to ask?
About the thing. I was gonna do the acting thing.
Okay, great. Now somebody did ask a question. What if you're supposed to start off screen and walk on? So I'll answer that question. Which was that your question, Ava? Yeah, thank you for that. But yeah, it's a great question. And I would say previously I was a big fan of it. Honestly, when I was teaching, I was like, come on, start off screen, walk on. It's like it's something, it's interesting. But then I learned last summer that EcoCast, which is attached to breakdown services, and a lot of casting directors use, that EcoCast uses whatever the first frame of the video is as the picture for that video. So if producers are going back or directors are going back and looking at your tape and they're like, oh, this Ava girl, like, who is she? And you've decided to step in from off camera, then what they see at the very beginning is this. And they're like, dang, who is that again? And so the thing that I advise now is that if you want to step in, start where the camera can see some of you. So let's say that I wanted to do the scene in the chair. Yeah, just like that, Ava. That's exactly it. But you want to can be a little bit closer so that you kind of are starting behind. And so if I wanted to do the scene and sitting in the chair, and it was like stick comes in, then I could start here. Hey, so on action, you're still seeing my face, and you're still seeing something I want to show about the character. And then mostly the scenes here. Hey, oh my gosh, it's so great to see you. Da, 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 da. I'm still realizing what the writer has given me, but I'm doing it in a way that lets my face be seen and lets me show you something about the character for I'm like physically seen. Okay, Christina's question: how do you be realistic in acting? Is Christina still here? She is. Yeah, there's Christina. Christina, were you here the other day when I was talking about volume?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you want
Sorry,
that?
right now I'm in the car.
Do you want that answer again, or are you looking for something specific?
It's something specific, like so I find my acting I like too much of the facial expressions like I want to be normal with it.
Like how do you get out of making the faces and into the like believing you're there and it's really happening? I think that you start as simple as possible.
Oh.
Right. So I would say start with like, can you talk like you were just talking about breakfast? Which is something that we talked about, in lessons like last week. Are you, I'm just getting weird feedback from your mic, Christina. So I'm just gonna keep muting you. Thank you. And so I would say start with like, are you using that same voice? Are you talking the way you talk? Are you using the same volume that you would use if you're talking to somebody who's like this far away from you? And from there, I would say that it's complicated because it's complicated. If there was one trick that was like, here's how to just completely, be totally realistic but totally expressive, because those two things pull in opposite directions, right? And we actually want good acting to be both. We want good acting to be completely believable. Every moment of it, every second of it, we completely believe this is what the person wanted to say. And you can do that by just being super boring. Here's everything I wanted to say. It's totally believable. It's totally realistic. It's also super boring. Which kind of only works if you're just like so incredibly interesting looking that we want to listen to you no matter how boring you are. Which is like not a good thing to count on, even if you really are that interesting looking. We also want you to be really expressive, but we don't want to catch you at it, right? So you got to do both of these things, and if you have to choose one, choose believable, right? So that's what I'm saying. Start with the foundation of believable, and if you can do a foundation of completely believable, then from that place, if you want to play with expressiveness, the way that I know to do it as an acting teacher is by getting people to engage with the story out there. I think that as long as you are thinking about your face and what it's doing, you will come across fake and false and self-conscious, because there are just too many little muscles here for most people to think about while also doing anything else at all. If you're thinking about what your eyes are doing, if you're thinking about what your mouth is doing, if you're thinking about what your eyebrows are doing, while you are also trying to have a real conversation with somebody, you're overloading your brain. And so the thing that I know to do that often helps in class is really get the actor, once they're in that place of being completely believable with lines, which can take time. It can take somebody like a year of regular practice before they can do that with words that aren't theirs. Right? If acting was easy, everybody'd be doing it. Like, it takes practice. Oh man, I had this girl call me for advice this week. She's 14, and her mom's thinking about moving her down to LA. And I was like, don't do it. Like, so much harder to get work there. And she was like, but I've got an agent now, and like I did this commercial, and like, how do I get more jobs? And I was like, practice. Like, that's the only thing you have control over. Like, the only thing you can't have control over is like, when you go into the audition, are you extremely skilled? And the only way you do that is practice. I was like, if you wanted to be on the Olympic soccer team, you wouldn't expect to play on the Olympic soccer team until you'd already been on the like provincials team. And the only way you'd get on the provincial team is if you were doing really, really well in your local team and you were already practicing like crazy and already winning a bunch of games. And then you would get a chance to like audition for the provincial team. And they were like, oh, yeah. And like, she was kind of discouraged because like, I think she just wanted me to like give her the magic, like, well, nobody's told you, but here's the trick. And like, there just isn't one. The things you have control over are you practicing to the point where you are extremely skilled every time you go in the room? And are you making sure your agent has everything they need to help market you appropriately? And beyond that, that's all you can really do as an actor, in my opinion. Right? I mean, I guess you can go that next level and like network with people and like meet producers and things, but like, you're a couple of years away from that probably. Oh, that's not true. You could follow them all on Twitter and like be their Twitter friends. Like, it's possible, but like, really, is that a good use of your time until you've done those first two things? I don't think so, in my opinion. All of which is to say, and this is what I'm going to get into tomorrow a little bit, is if you have a strong feeling or opinion about the person you're talking to, and you can just get into the feeling behind that. You're like, oh, right, yeah, that person, I hate their guts. And I'm just like, then I'm not thinking about what my face is doing. I'm just like, oh, I hate you so much right now. And my face will probably, if I can really find that and find a way to empathize with it or to connect with it, my face will probably do exactly what it's meant to do. But if we as an audience, we hear you thinking about your voice, thinking about your face, we'll catch you at it. It will seem false, and you will break that first rule of it's got to be believable. Like it's got to be believable for you to even get in the door. I think there's definitely a place, in classwork, particularly, for you to play with being more expressive. Where they're like, yeah, now you can be totally believable, but it's kind of boring. So now play with being more expressive, even though it means it's not all going to be perfect. But just like keep tracking it. Can you do both? When the agent sends us an audition, does the casting director always approve the request? That's a question from Carla that's here. Which is great. Yes, the casting director is the one who chooses auditions. Your agent, they only make money if you get work. And so your agent doesn't choose who gets auditions. They only choose who to ask for auditions for. Right? So remember, it's like producers are in charge of the money. The director in charge of the story, casting director is 100% in charge of the auditions. The agent is in charge of the actors, marketing the actors, and the actor is in charge of themselves. So basically, every time there's a project that comes from these two people, the casting director is like, hey, agents, who have you got? And the agents are like, here's who I've got. Please see my actors. They're amazing. They're such great actors. Da, 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 da. I want to eat. So you should see my actors so they can get work on set so that I can make money and eat. And so your agent, of course, they're going to submit you every time they think something is right for you. If you're being chosen for an audition, it's because the casting director chose you. So hopefully that answers your question, Carla. And that's why every time you get an audition, that's a meaningful step towards your relationship with that casting director, right? And especially because they've got 200, 500, 800 people to choose from, and they're going to see 15 or 20. Every time they say yes to you, it's them going, well, we saw Carla before, and it's like she came in and was interesting enough, or technically proficient enough, or skilled enough, or hopefully all three, that we think that she's going to be a good choice out of those 800. She's going to be a good choice as one of our 6 or 10 or 20 this time as well. And so every time they choose you and say no to a whole bunch of other people, and they're right, and you come in, and you do skilled work, they're like, great, okay, and that builds their sense of like, okay, Carla, somebody I can count on. How important is backstory, and how much should you do for an audition? Dia, that is a great question. If you're here tomorrow, let's come back to it in more detail, but we'll give you the short answer, which is if backstory is genuinely helpful to your performance, then it is useful. I don't think when I was in theater school, there was a big focus on backstory, and honestly, it didn't make me feel anything. It just made me write a whole bunch of essays, and it actually got me in my head. And it was not, the way they approached it was not super effective for me personally. And so there were years there where I was like, well, I guess I can't act because at that time I didn't know that I was just being taught a style that didn't work for me, or a tool that didn't work for me. So whereas I've seen backstory just bring people's work to life. There was a student in one of my classes on Sunday, who wrote a whole bunch of backstory for all of the different people that she was referencing in the scene, and you could hear it when she said, George and Lemon's wedding. You could hear her relationship to each of those people, and it was subtle. It was like, I mean, that's a bunch of extra work just to like add a little bit of subtext to those 2 words in the scene. But it was something she enjoyed, and it definitely improved her performance. So I think it's one of those things that you've got to track. Do you enjoy it? Does it help your performance? And I think up to the point that those 2 things are true, then backstory is useful for you. There are other ways, to get a detailed performance, and so if you haven't done a lot of backstory, indulge, like go all the way with it and see what it does for you. And maybe you've already done enough of it that you can do some of that investigating on your own and go like, oh, actually, I know up to a point, here's how much genuinely makes me feel in performance, and where I should be putting my focus. And then Christina's last question here was, is it better to be in a series or a movie? I don't know. Like, what a question. Better how? There's like 100 different kinds of better. Is it better to be the lead in a series or a movie? I don't know. If you're the lead in a movie, maybe your photo is on like billboards and buses, and like more people notice you. If you're the lead in a series, maybe you get like more days on set because you're shooting 15 episodes and you're there every day. But like, but if you're saying like, is it better to be a day player on either one of those things? No. But like, well, I don't know, like with the sole exception that like possibly if you are in something that everybody recognizes, that some people will care about that. But it's just not as big a deal in Vancouver. Nobody's gonna be like, oh my God, you had one line on The Good Doctor? Stop everything, we have to see you for an audition. Right? Like The Good Doctor is like one of the biggest shows, and does like cast and shoot here. Right? Like I can't remember, at some point it was like the most watched show in America or something. Does cast and shoot here. But like one line on that versus one line on the 100, is still going to be just a single credit on your resume, and that's how casting directors are going to look at it. But they're going to be like, cool, hey, she's worked professionally. Maybe we should see her for one line in this thing. That's my opinion. All right, there's our 15 minutes. Thanks so much for sticking around, and I'll see some of you tomorrow. We're going to talk more about empathy.
Thanks.
Bye.